I exposed a $2.3 million investment fraud and sent my broker to federal prison for 18 years through the legal system. His name was Marcus Whitfield, Series 7 and 66 licensed, a senior vice president at Sterling Wealth Management with a corner office overlooking the harbor and a wall full of industry awards. He told me for 9 years that my money was safe, diversified, and growing steadily. What he didn't tell me was that steady growth was an illusion created by fabricated statements while he systematically drained client accounts to fund his gambling addiction and luxury lifestyle that included a yacht, 2 Porsches, and a downtown penthouse he couldn't afford on legitimate commissions. My name is Robert Chen, and if you picture me, picture the same white polo shirt I've worn to every business meeting for the past 12 years. I don't change much because consistency keeps me focused on what matters. I'm 48 years old, a forensic accountant who spent 26 years investigating financial crimes for major insurance companies and law enforcement agencies. The kind of guy who organizes receipts by quarter, maintains detailed spreadsheets for everything, and keeps physical copies of every important document. I wasn't chasing aggressive returns or exotic investments. I just wanted my retirement to compound quietly while I focused on building cases that put white-collar criminals behind bars. The irony wasn't lost on me when I became the victim of exactly the type of fraud I'd spent my career exposing. I met Marcus in 2014 through my brother-in-law, a successful orthopedic surgeon who swore by Marcus's conservative approach and consistent performance. "Rob, this guy is different," he told me over coffee. "No high-pressure sales tactics, no promises of unrealistic returns. Just solid, boring wealth management that lets you sleep at night." He's been managing my practice's retirement plan for 3 years, and I've never had a single concern. That endorsement carried weight because my brother-in-law was naturally skeptical and had the financial resources to attract quality advisors. Marcus's office occupied the entire 42nd floor of Harbor Tower, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city skyline and waterfront. His mahogany desk anchored a space that radiated quiet competence and established success. The walls displayed his credentials in elegant frames: MBA from Wharton, Series 7 and Series 66 licenses, Certified Financial Planner designation, and various industry awards for client satisfaction and portfolio performance. Client testimonials in leather portfolios spoke of his integrity, attention to detail, and ability to navigate volatile markets while preserving capital. Our initial consultation lasted nearly 3 hours. Marcus took comprehensive notes about my forensic accounting practice, my wife Sarah's career as a high school principal, our retirement timeline, and our goals for our daughter Emily's college education. He spoke eloquently about fiduciary responsibility, emphasizing that he was legally and ethically bound to act solely in my best interest. "Robert, I don't just manage portfolios," he said with apparent sincerity. "I protect families and their futures. Your success becomes my reputation, and my reputation is built on trust earned over decades of consistent performance." His investment philosophy seemed perfectly aligned with my conservative nature and professional skepticism. He recommended a diversified portfolio with 55% in dividend-paying blue-chip stocks, 30% in government and high-grade corporate bonds, and 15% in carefully selected mutual funds and REITs for enhanced diversification. The strategy promised steady growth without excessive risk, exactly what Sarah and I wanted as we approached our peak earning years while maintaining the flexibility to adjust for market conditions. We began our relationship conservatively with a rollover of my previous employer's 401k, approximately $300,000. Marcus's performance exceeded my conservative expectations, delivering consistent 7 to 9% annual returns even during periods of market volatility. His quarterly reports were comprehensive yet understandable, and our meetings never felt rushed or sales-oriented. He remembered personal details about our family, asking about Emily's debate team competitions and Sarah's administrative challenges at the high school. Trust compounds over time, like investment returns, and Marcus earned ours through consistent competence and genuine personal attention to our family's welfare. After 2 successful years, we transferred Sarah's teacher retirement accounts to his management. When my parents passed away in 2018, Marcus expertly handled the inheritance rollover of $400,000, structuring it to minimize tax implications while maintaining our conservative growth objectives and providing guidance that helped us navigate a difficult emotional period. The relationship evolved far beyond professional boundaries over the years. Marcus attended our anniversary celebration, sent thoughtful holiday cards, and even provided financial guidance when Emily needed help understanding student loan options for college. He became genuinely integrated into our family's financial life, holding limited power of attorney for certain investment decisions and maintaining detailed records of our evolving goals and circumstances. By early 2021, Marcus was managing just over $2.1 million of our life savings across multiple accounts, retirement funds, taxable investments, and Emily's college fund. The portfolio appeared to be performing exactly as promised: steady, consistent growth with regular dividend income and minimal volatility. The first subtle red flag appeared in March 2021 when I received a quarterly statement showing a $78 portfolio rebalancing fee that didn't match any fee disclosure I'd previously received or signed. As a forensic accountant trained to identify financial irregularities and document discrepancies, this unexpected charge immediately triggered my professional instincts. I sent Marcus a detailed email requesting clarification about this fee and documentation showing its authorization in our investment management agreement. His response was swift but uncharacteristically dismissive. "Robert, that's a quarterly optimization charge for maintaining target allocations across asset classes. It's covered in the program documentation under administrative expenses, standard industry practice for institutional quality portfolio management." The tone was unlike his previous patient explanations, and his reference to documentation I couldn't locate in my meticulously organized files raised immediate concerns about transparency and disclosure. I spent that evening in my home office, still wearing my white polo shirt that had become my daily uniform, methodically reviewing every document Marcus had provided over the past 7 years. What I discovered over the next 6 hours would shatter 9 years of trust and reveal a systematic theft that had been occurring under the cover of professional wealth management. Using the same analytical techniques I'd employed in dozens of fraud investigations, I began comparing Marcus's glossy quarterly reports with the raw statements I received directly from Schwab, our custodian. Initially, the statements appeared to match, but as I examined them with forensic precision, subtle discrepancies emerged that followed patterns I'd seen in previous fraud cases. Dates were shifted by a day or two here and there. Position values were rounded in Marcus's reports but showed exact figures in the custodian statements. Most troubling, Marcus's statements showed my money invested in diversified mutual funds and individual securities, while Schwab's records indicated substantial wire transfers to entities I'd never heard of: Pinnacle Income Opportunities LP, Harbor Bridge Capital Partners, and Whitfield Asset Management LLC. I had no memory of authorizing transfers to these entities, and my email archives, which I maintain with obsessive detail, contained no authorization letters, signed documents, or even mentions of these partnerships. The electronic signatures on the wire authorization letters looked authentic at first glance, but studying them closely with the magnifying glass I use for document examination, the pressure points were wrong. I don't curl the tail on my R the way these signatures did, and the C in Chen was formed differently than my natural handwriting pattern. My forensic training had taught me to follow the money trail in complex fraud schemes, so I spent hours researching these mysterious entities through public databases and Secretary of State records. Pinnacle Income Opportunities LP appeared to be a Delaware limited partnership with minimal public filings. No SEC registrations, no Form D notices for exempt offerings, no audited financial statements that legitimate investment funds would generate. The registered address traced to a UPS store 6 blocks from Marcus's office, and the managing member was listed as Whitfield Management Services, a clear connection to my supposedly independent financial advisor. I called Schwab's institutional desk the next morning, requesting a complete transaction history for all accounts under Sterling Wealth Management supervision. After extensive identity verification, a senior operations officer confirmed my worst fears. Yes, Mr. Chen, we have letters of authorization on file directing wire transfers totaling $1.8 million to various limited partnerships over the past 18 months. The letters appear to be properly executed and were submitted through your advisor's office. The systematic nature of the deception was crystal clear to my trained eye. This wasn't market underperformance. This was calculated, premeditated fraud executed by someone who understood exactly how to exploit client trust and regulatory blind spots. I needed professional assistance to understand the full scope of what had been done to me and potentially dozens of other families. I immediately contacted David Park, a forensic accountant I'd worked with on complex litigation cases, known throughout the industry for his meticulous approach to financial fraud reconstruction. David's assessment was devastating but unsurprising. Robert, this appears to be a sophisticated investment advisor fraud scheme using shell entities to systematically divert client funds. The phantom partnerships, forged wire authorizations, and fabricated statements are textbook indicators of systematic theft operating under legitimate advisory cover. I authorized David to begin a complete forensic analysis, understanding that his $20,000 fee was necessary for building an airtight legal case. His team immediately sent preservation letters to Sterling Wealth Management and Marcus personally, warning them to preserve all records, communications, and trading data related to my accounts and the mysterious partnerships. While David's team worked on forensic reconstruction, I began my own parallel investigation into Marcus's background using open-source intelligence techniques I'd mastered in insurance fraud cases. Public record searches revealed troubling information I'd never known during our 9-year relationship. Marcus had been sanctioned by FINRA twice in the early 2000s for unsuitable investment recommendations and failure to disclose material conflicts of interest. More concerning, bankruptcy court records showed he'd filed for Chapter 7 protection in 2018, citing gambling debts exceeding $600,000 and failed real estate investments. His 2019 divorce proceedings revealed crushing alimony and child support obligations, totaling $9,000 monthly, creating constant financial pressure that legitimate advisory commissions couldn't satisfy. Property records confirmed Marcus owned expensive real estate, including a waterfront home, luxury vehicles including 2 Porsches, plus recreational assets like his yacht that his disclosed advisory income couldn't support. The picture emerging was of a man under enormous personal financial stress, with direct access to millions in client assets and minimal oversight from Sterling Wealth Management. David Park's preliminary forensic report arrived 4 weeks later and confirmed my worst professional fears with mathematical precision. His analysis revealed that of the $2.1 million Marcus claimed to be managing, only $300,000 could be traced to legitimate investment assets properly registered in my name. The remaining $1.8 million had been systematically diverted through wire transfers to the shell partnerships I discovered. The theft had been occurring gradually, with Marcus using new client deposits and fabricated investment returns to maintain the illusion that my portfolio was growing according to our conservative strategy. But the fraud extended beyond simple theft. David's analysis revealed systematic overcharging through excessive trading designed to generate commission income, and placement of funds in high-fee proprietary products that benefited Sterling and Marcus more than investors. The churning was particularly egregious. My supposedly conservative buy-and-hold portfolio showed over 300% annual turnover, generating massive commission income for Marcus while devastating my returns through excessive transaction costs. The total calculated damage was staggering: $160,000 in excessive fees, $240,000 in opportunity costs, and $1.9 million in direct theft. Total losses, $2.3 million, representing virtually our entire life savings. I began carefully reaching out to other Sterling clients, using professional networks to identify potential victims while avoiding witness tampering. The pattern was predictable yet heartbreaking. Marcus had specifically targeted clients experiencing major life transitions when they were emotionally vulnerable and likely to delegate investment decisions without intensive oversight. Within 8 weeks, I'd identified 29 other victims who'd been sold similar exclusive investment opportunities and experienced comparable problems with performance reporting and withdrawal restrictions. We formed a victim coalition, meeting weekly via secure video conference to share information and coordinate legal strategies. I led these meetings from my home office, always wearing my familiar white polo shirt that had become my daily uniform, maintaining consistency that kept me grounded during this crisis. Everyone kept cameras on, and by the 4th week, we all wore the same expression: initial confusion that had crystallized into focused determination to seek justice through proper legal channels. We assigned specific tasks to maximize effectiveness. One member tracked every business entity Marcus had registered across multiple states. Another compiled wire transfer records from all participants. A third analyzed Marcus's complete regulatory history and previous disciplinary actions. Meanwhile, David's team built a comprehensive database documenting fraud patterns across all victims. The scope was staggering. Combined losses across 32 identified victims exceeded $8.7 million, representing systematic theft occurring for at least 5 years under legitimate advisory cover. Marcus had been operating a sophisticated Ponzi-like scheme, using new client investments to pay distributions to existing clients while skimming substantial amounts for personal use, all hidden within complex, legitimate advisory relationships that made detection extremely difficult for individual victims. I retained Mark Sullivan, a securities litigation specialist whose firm had successfully prosecuted dozens of investment advisor fraud cases and maintained strong relationships with federal prosecutors and regulatory enforcement divisions. Sitting across his conference table in my white polo shirt, we mapped a comprehensive legal strategy targeting Marcus through every available channel: FINRA arbitration for securities violations, SEC complaints for investment advisor fraud, state securities regulators for immediate license suspension, and criminal referrals to federal prosecutors who specialized in complex financial crimes. We would execute all 3 phases simultaneously within 72 hours to create maximum pressure and prevent Marcus from destroying evidence or transferring additional assets offshore. Our first strategic move was filing a detailed FINRA arbitration claim with a 300-page appendix documenting the systematic fraud across multiple victim accounts. We requested expedited discovery on Sterling Wealth Management's supervisory procedures, Marcus's undisclosed business activities, and complete trading records for all accounts under his management. Simultaneously, I submitted comprehensive complaints to the SEC's Enforcement Division and state securities regulators, providing them with David Park's forensic analysis and the growing evidence from our 32-member victim coalition. The regulatory response was swift and coordinated beyond my expectations. Within 72 hours of our filings, the State Securities Division issued an emergency suspension of Marcus's investment advisor license, citing imminent public harm and credible evidence of systematic misappropriation of client funds. The order was posted on the regulator's public website, and financial news services picked up the story within hours, triggering panic among Sterling's remaining clients. Sterling Wealth Management's carefully constructed facade began crumbling immediately after the emergency suspension became public knowledge. Their phones rang constantly as panicked clients demanded explanations and requested immediate account transfers to competitors. The firm's assets under management dropped by 30% within 2 weeks as wealthy clients fled, taking their substantial fees and commissions with them and creating a liquidity crisis that threatened the firm's survival. Our next move was securing a temporary restraining order in state court to freeze all accounts tied to Marcus and his shell entities. Armed with David's flow of funds analysis, the state's emergency suspension order, and copies of the forged wire authorizations, we presented an ironclad case for asset preservation. The judge signed our TRO without hesitation, immediately freezing bank accounts, preventing yacht and vehicle transfers, and stopping Marcus from accessing any remaining liquid assets. That evening, Marcus called me directly from a blocked number, but I was ready with recording equipment I'd used in previous fraud investigations. His polished professional demeanor had completely disappeared, replaced by desperate threats and attempts at manipulation. "Robert, you don't understand what you've started," he said, his voice shaking with barely controlled panic. "You're going to destroy innocent families. My children will suffer because of your vindictive crusade." "Your children didn't forge my signature, Marcus," I replied calmly, maintaining the same professional tone I'd used in dozens of depositions. "And this isn't a crusade, it's justice through proper legal channels." He tried a different approach, offering private settlement negotiations. "Sterling knew about everything. They blessed the investment structure. They'll bury you in litigation for years. Settle with me privately and I can unwind this mess quietly." When I pressed him for documentation of Sterling's knowledge, he became increasingly evasive and ultimately threatening. "You think you're so smart with your forensic accounting background, but you have no idea what you're dealing with. This will consume your life." I immediately forwarded the recorded conversation to Mark Sullivan, who added it to our evidence file under consciousness of guilt and witness intimidation. These recordings would later become crucial evidence in the federal prosecution, demonstrating Marcus's awareness of his criminal conduct and his attempts to obstruct justice through intimidation. Meanwhile, Sterling's internal investigation, conducted under pressure from regulators and their insurance carriers, uncovered damaging evidence they couldn't suppress or minimize. Email records showed Marcus had systematically misled compliance officers about his outside business activities, forged client authorizations for unauthorized transfers, and manipulated internal systems to hide the true nature of client investments from supervisory oversight. Most damaging to Sterling's credibility, their own compliance files contained multiple red flags that supervisors had either ignored or inadequately investigated over the previous 3 years. Internal memos showed a compliance officer had flagged Marcus for unusual wire transfer patterns and excessive portfolio turnover, but his supervisor had closed both inquiries with minimal documentation, prioritizing Marcus's revenue generation over client protection. The federal investigation gained serious momentum when the U.S. Attorney's Office received our comprehensive evidence package and the SEC's formal criminal referral. 2 federal prosecutors specializing in complex financial fraud, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh and her colleague, met with our victim coalition to assess the strength of potential criminal charges and evaluate our cooperation as witnesses in a federal prosecution. The meeting took place in a secure conference room at the federal building, where I presented our case wearing my familiar white polo shirt and carrying binders organized with the same precision I'd used in dozens of previous fraud investigations. Walsh was immediately impressed by the quality and comprehensiveness of our documentation. "Mr. Chen, in 20 years of prosecuting financial crimes, I've rarely seen a victim group this well organized or evidence this thoroughly documented," she told our coalition. "Your forensic analysis has essentially built our criminal case." Federal agents executed search warrants on Marcus's home, office, and various business entities the following week, seizing computers, financial records, and personal documents that provided additional evidence of systematic fraud and money laundering. The grand jury proceedings were conducted in secret, but we learned through our attorneys that the evidence was overwhelming and indictments were imminent. Marcus's arrest came on a Tuesday morning at his downtown gym, where federal agents took him into custody while he was completing his workout routine. The contrast between his expensive athletic wear and federal handcuffs perfectly symbolized his fall from respected financial advisor to federal criminal defendant. The federal indictment contained 23 counts, including wire fraud, mail fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and aggravated identity theft for the forged client authorizations. Sterling Wealth Management's stock price collapsed following news of the indictment, and several institutional clients terminated their relationships immediately. The firm's reputation in the financial services industry was permanently damaged, and they began settlement negotiations with our victim coalition to avoid prolonged litigation that could result in complete bankruptcy. The FINRA arbitration hearing was our first major legal victory and set the foundation for everything that followed. Over 3 weeks, a panel of 3 experienced arbitrators heard devastating testimony that systematically dismantled Marcus's defense. David Park's forensic analysis was presented with mathematical precision, showing beyond any doubt the systematic nature of the fraud across multiple victim accounts. I testified for 2 full days, about 9 years of trust building, wearing my familiar white polo shirt under a navy blazer, explaining how Marcus had exploited my professional background as a forensic accountant to create an illusion of legitimacy while systematically stealing client funds through forged authorizations and fake investment programs. Other victims provided equally compelling testimony that established a clear pattern of predatory targeting. Margaret Foster, a 79-year-old widow, explained how Marcus convinced her to invest her late husband's pension in his exclusive program while building personal relationships with her family. "He wasn't just my financial advisor," she testified with remarkable composure. "He was someone I trusted like family. Instead, he stole everything my husband worked 40 years to save." The arbitration panel awarded me $2.3 million in compensatory damages, plus $400,000 in punitive damages, a rare addition for particularly egregious conduct. The federal criminal trial 6 months later was the main event that would determine Marcus's ultimate fate. In a packed federal courthouse, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh opened with devastating clarity. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about systematic theft disguised as professional investment management. The defendant, Marcus Whitfield, stole over $9 million from 68 families who trusted him with their life savings, using forged signatures and fake investment programs to fund his gambling addiction and luxury lifestyle." My testimony was the prosecution's cornerstone, walking the jury through 9 years of relationship building and the meticulous discovery of Marcus's systematic fraud. Under cross-examination, Marcus's public defender attempted desperately to paint me as a sophisticated investor who should have recognized investment risks. "Mr. Chen, you're a forensic accountant with decades of experience. Didn't you understand the risks involved?" I looked directly at Marcus, who couldn't meet my eyes, then back at the jury. "I understood, investment counselor. I didn't understand that my advisor would forge my signature to steal my money and create fake investment programs that existed only on fabricated statements. My professional training allowed me to expose his crimes when regulatory oversight failed." David Park's expert testimony provided the technical foundation, methodically explaining how Marcus operated a Ponzi-like scheme, using new client deposits to pay distributions to existing clients, while diverting substantial amounts for personal use. Of the $9.7 million in client funds transferred to defendants' shell entities, only $400,000 can be traced to legitimate investment assets. The remaining $9.3 million was either used to pay other clients or diverted to accounts controlled by Mr. Whitfield for personal expenses, including gambling debts, luxury vehicles, and real estate. The documentary evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. FBI agents had recovered deleted emails from Marcus's computers showing deliberate deception and systematic fraud. One particularly damaging message instructed his assistant to label all Pinnacle transfers as diversified equity allocations in client statements and to avoid mentioning specific entity names that clients might research independently. Sterling Wealth Management's compliance failures became central to establishing the broader scope of institutional negligence that enabled the fraud. Marcus's decision to testify in his own defense proved catastrophic. Under Jennifer Walsh's cross-examination, he claimed the investments were legitimate but poorly documented due to their sophisticated institutional nature. When pressed for evidence, his explanations crumbled completely. "Mr. Whitfield, where are the audited financial statements for these investment funds?" Marcus fumbled through papers, claiming confidentiality restrictions. "Where are the SEC filings that legitimate pooled investment vehicles must maintain?" He cited exemptions that didn't exist. "Where is any evidence that client money was actually invested rather than stolen?" He had no credible answer. The prosecution played recorded phone conversations where Marcus had lied to elderly clients about their account performance, claiming strong returns while their money had already been diverted to his personal accounts. Marcus broke down completely when confronted with bank records showing over $700,000 in wire transfers to offshore casino accounts and Las Vegas gambling establishments, the clear motive behind his systematic theft of client funds. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all 23 federal counts, including wire fraud, mail fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and aggravated identity theft. Marcus's face showed complete defeat as the reality of spending decades in federal prison finally registered. At the sentencing hearing 2 months later, 28 victims delivered impact statements describing how Marcus's theft had destroyed their retirement plans and shattered their trust in financial advisors. I told Judge Patricia Morrison, "Your Honor, Marcus Whitfield didn't just steal money, he stole years of our lives and our faith in the financial system. But we proved that ordinary citizens can fight back through proper legal channels and achieve justice when they refuse to accept being victims." Judge Morrison's sentence was severe and comprehensive. 21 years in federal prison, complete restitution of $9.7 million to all victims, forfeiture of all assets, including his yacht and luxury vehicles, and lifetime prohibition from the securities industry. Federal marshals immediately took Marcus into custody as his family watched from the gallery, their faces showing relief that justice had finally been served. 3 years later, my life has been completely rebuilt through the proper channels of American justice. I recovered $2.3 million through the FINRA Arbitration Award, criminal restitution, and Sterling's insurance settlement, representing full recovery of my losses. The recovery wasn't just financial, it was emotional and spiritual. I'm no longer defined by victimhood, but empowered by the knowledge that ordinary citizens can defeat sophisticated criminals through methodical legal action. Marcus Whitfield is currently serving his sentence at a medium-security federal prison, where he works in the kitchen facility for 25 cents per hour. I check his status monthly through the Bureau of Prisons website. He has 18 years remaining on his sentence and will be 74 years old when released. His luxury lifestyle has been replaced by a 6x8 cell, his yacht sold at federal auction, his Porsches repossessed, and his penthouse foreclosed. I still wear my white polo shirt as a daily uniform, a small constant that keeps me grounded in complex legal and financial matters. It reminds me that consistency and attention to detail, the same traits that helped me discover Marcus's fraud, remain my greatest professional assets. The $78 fee that started this journey taught me that small discrepancies often reveal large truths. Justice served through legitimate legal channels is more satisfying than any personal vendetta could ever be.